You would have heard the French ambassador yesterday and his criticism. Did you think Ambassador Thébault was on the money or over the top?
Well, I don't really think it's a question of Australia versus France is the first point. I get that that's where the Prime Minister would like to take this. But at the end of the day, this is really a question of our own national security. And for me, the failings of Scott Morrison and this government in respect of that. I mean, whichever way you look at it, the government signed up with a partner 5 years ago for a program which was going to last the better part of 30, 50 years, really, and by the time that we're talking about those submarines coming out of the water. And 5 years into that partnership, the government bring it to an end. Now, whichever way you look at it, that is an incredible failure of national security policy. It's tens of billions of dollars that have been wasted. It is thousands of jobs destroyed in South Australia. But much more significantly than that, it is years lost, such that what we are now facing is a major capability gap in terms of getting the successor submarine to combat.
Okay, so
by all of those measures, this is one of the worst national security failings in our history. And really, right now, Scott Morrison and his government are the worst national security government we have ever had. We are less safe because of their actions and their handling of this program.
You have agreed with the change of plan, though, the new submarine project, broadly speaking, under the AUKUS deal. So we're really at a question of why this happened. The Independent Audit Office says that France missed 2 key milestones already before any of the actual project had begun in terms of building. The Independent Shipbuilding Advisory Board told Defence that it should scrap the deal. Wasn't this just the government acting on that advice and Naval Group let Australia down?
I take the Prime Minister at his word when he spoke about this at the time that he announced the AUKUS deal. And that is that the government were not leaving this contract with the French because of any actions on the part of the French. In other words, Scott Morrison
wasn't that just diplomacy?
Made completely clear.
That was just him trying not to upset the French. Surely, you talk about good diplomacy. Wasn't that good diplomacy to say, Naval Group, it's great. We're going to go with another plan now?
All of this takes place behind a veil, which is for good reason. Submarines are a very sensitive piece of equipment. We can only go on what the Prime Minister said, which is that this was not a failing of France in terms of its meeting the terms of the contract. At the end of the day...
Hang on, so you're saying that this contract was going well and was all on track. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that the failings here were a failure of this government, and that's a point that I've been making for a long time now. I have been very vocal in relation to the terms on which the government made the entry into the arrangement with France, the premature down selection of one contractor in terms of our future submarine program with France. All of that happened way too early.
So is the real issue then
purposes
that
in the lead up to
France too early?
2016.
We selected France and Naval Group too early, and as a result, they had a laissez-faire approach to this because, as I said, the Independent Audit Office says they missed 2 key milestones already. Independent Shipbuilding Advisory Board told Defence to scrap the deal. This was not going well, was it?
The handling of this program by this government, by the Morrison government, was a complete failure. That is what has happened here. There's no escaping that. You enter
How do you see the performance of Naval Group then?
Partnership with another country. Well, you enter into a partnership with another country to build something as sensitive as our submarines, which is a multi-decade partnership, and then you abandon it after 5 years. Whichever way you cut it, right in the heart of that is a botched program. And that lies with this government.
The question
they can't run away from it. They literally
do you think Naval Group was? Well, do you think Naval Group was delivering what it said it would after this contract was signed between then and now?
I can only go on what the Prime Minister himself said.
But that's not true. You can go by the Independent Audit Office as well.
Yes, but the Independent Audit Office is making an observation about how the program itself is going, and it's not necessarily apportioning blame. The way in which this government has handled this program from day one has been an absolute disgrace. And that's not something I've just said since the government signed up with AUKUS. That was a point I made to the National Press Club more than a year ago, that the handling of this program from the outset has been one of the worst management exercises of a government in terms of a serious procurement program that we have seen in our history.
Okay, but we get a company to build subs. But you've got criticism for the way they selected France too early, and that's... Okay, go on.
Well, the point I made more than a year ago is that down selecting to one company as early as they did, in other words, not competing the design of the submarine, was an epic mistake. And it was a mistake made for political purposes. It really meant that from the get-go, Australia was at a disadvantage, had not much bargaining power in the relationship that it had with France. And from there,
you've made that point. I understand that.
But you've got to let me finish, Tom.
So if the Australian
government... you saw the program blow out in every way: time, cost, Australian industry content. Now, that is on the Australian government. You know, they are the ones who are meant to be managing
we're nearly out of time, so let me drill down to this. So the initial decision was a failure by the Australian government, but cannot it also be the case that since then, according to you, because of a poor decision, Naval Group has let the Australian government down since then? It's still in charge of building these submarines. It has missed these milestones.
Well, let me be clear. You don't contract out your national security, and you don't contract out your sovereignty. I mean, what we're seeing with all of this argument now is Scott Morrison, once again, desperately trying to blame everyone under the sun. I mean, whatever has happened here, it is for the Australian government to manage this program and make sure that it is on time. It's for the Australian government to set it up in the right way so that we have the right bargaining power throughout the process so that we can deliver the program. And in that respect, Scott Morrison failed. What it all boils down to when it comes to national security, Tom, is that this government is responsible for the wasting of tens of billions of dollars and has opened up an unforgivable capability gap with our most
we're just about out of time.
Platform.
Just finally, Richard Marles, you've previously called Naval's record on building subs superb. Do you still feel that way?
Naval made good submarines. There's no question of that, and there would be no one in the world who would say anything different to that. This has been a failure by Scott Morrison and his government in managing this program, pure and simple, and they cannot run away from that.
A final topic as well, Tim Smith. We know about his indiscretion on drink driving. What's your view? Should that be something that ends one's career in politics?
Oh, look, what Tim Smith has done is obviously very serious. By his own admission, he's made a very big mistake here. There can be no getting around that. I think what happens in terms of Tim Smith's future is now really a matter for him and the Liberal Party, but there's no doubting the seriousness of what's occurred here.
No, you've got no view at all?
Oh, well, I express that view, but at the end of the day, I'm not about to weigh in on what the Liberal Party does here. It's a matter for Tim Smith and the Liberal Party to work out how they should walk forward from here. But there's no doubting the seriousness of what Tim Smith's done, and he's acknowledged that this has been a huge mistake.